Welcome to OAA Now, your home for Oakland Activities Association news and information. Here's your host, Sammy Taormina.
Welcome to OAA Now. I'm Sammy Taormina, blogger of the Dragon's Den, blogger of Inside the OAA, and one of the hosts between Taorminas on ONTV. A lot of interesting weekend. We've had cheerleading regionals occur. Today starts the girls basketball districts, and of course, boys basketball. Of course, wrapping up its season this week with district play starting next week. We'll go over the boys districts in about next week's show. When you look at, speaking of it today, one of the big stories is the girls basketball districts start today. It's a very unique, very interesting scenario. Of course, I wrote a blog article on it on Saturday, of course, of the couple intriguing games on Monday. What makes this interesting today is there's two intriguing games today that going to probably have a lot of impact on the district. The first one's over at Waterford Kettering, where Troy will take on Waterford Mott, and I think that's going to be a good matchup, especially with those teams. Those two they played earlier in the year over at Waterford Mott, and Troy ended up losing that game 53-50 in that one. And what I expect in that game is I expect it to be a very tight, very close-knit game. I just think that personally, Troy's going to try to use experience against Waterford Mott. But the problem is here, when you look at this game, is that the interior matchup, I think, could be exposed. And I know that Waterford Mott's had 2 wins this year against OAA teams, Troy and Clarkston, respectively. You look at those, and of course, you look at Troy, of course, this is a team that their best win this year is beating Lake Orion twice. And, and of course, Waterford Mott's had some good wins this season out in the Kensington Lakes North Division. Of course, they're in the same league with Waterford Kettering, the Wall Lake Schools, and Lakeland. And that is not an easy league to play in, especially when you have to deal with teams like Waterford Kettering and White Lake Lakeland on a consistent basis. And, it's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be a really good game there. I just think in the end it's going to be too much. It's going to be too much. It'll be too much Waterford Mott, because they're close to home. They played at Mott. You know what I mean? They lost by 3. Now, I don't know how much adjustment Simon Botto's going to make in this game, but I just feel like personally that you look at the game that they had, the second game of the year, I think both teams are now more experienced now. I just think Waterford Mott's going to expose Troy's inside game in that 5:30 tilt. I think it could be an interesting game, but I just think in the end it's going to be too much Waterford Mott. And we're probably looking at the collision course in the between Waterford Kettering and Waterford Mott, probably in the district final. And Kettering, of course, is a team that lost to Plymouth Salem in the Kensington Lakes championship game, and they're going to be motivated to win today. They're going to be motivated. I forgot to add another interesting game there. I think another one today is going to be Harrison and Seaholm, played at Birmingham Marion. You look at that game. Of course, Harrison this year has been all bashed up with injuries. Of course, with Diana Horman. Harrison has been bashed with injuries. Of course, with Amber Steffens and Kyler Rowland. Also, Seaholm's had some issues as well. Of course, Molly Stomberg leaving for Chicago. That did not help their cause at all. But you look at what Mackenzie Harbort's had this season, and it looks like she's found a sidekick in Diana Horman. Since the Lake Orion game, Horman's really started to take off to go along with Harbort. I'm curious to see how they do against Kristen Nelson today in Harrison. I just think, Harrison's played a much more tougher schedule than Seaholm. I just think personally, when you look at that game, I just think that I don't know if Harbort can repeat the 33-point performance she had against Bloomfield Hills last year when they came out of nowhere and stunned Bloomfield Hills. Of course, that was the year that they had Shannon Wilson on that team. But Seaholm was a different team back then than they were this year. You know what I mean? So I just think personally it's an interesting game because Harrison's had an interesting season. They've had they just beat Clarkson. Of course, Clarkson didn't play Erica Davenport in that game, their final game of the year. Of course, Davenport was resting up due to knee pain, I guess. But you look at in that Harrison Seahome game, it's gonna be a good matchup. I really do. I think the key is, I think personally, if Diana Holman goes inside, exposes Harrison in the interior, I think Seahome's got a shot at this thing. But at the end of the day, I just think that in the end of the day, I think that schedule has really helped Harrison. I think it's benefited Harrison. I just think that Harrison will come out there and go out in the Birmingham Marion and win this pre-district game. Over Seahome. Now when I look at that district, I don't think anybody's touching Birmingham Marion. I really don't. I really don't think anybody's touching Birmingham Marion in that district. Not North Farmington, not Bloomfield Hills, not even Harrison. I just think nobody's touching Birmingham Marion there. The district at Royal Oak, of course, it's very unique there. Royal Oak playing Southfield Lathrop. That's on Wednesday. That's going to be an interesting game because you got the guard matchup there. I think when you look at the guard matchup, especially with Gina Valentini, Rachel Long going up against Deja Church and Antoinette Miller, you kind of want to take Antoinette Miller and Deja Church, you know what I mean? But Miller's had a good year, but I'm just not sold on her. I'm really not, you know what I mean, as a player, you know what I mean? 'Cause I know she came over from Ferndale, you know what I mean? But I'm seriously, you know what I mean? I still have some doubts about Miller in that match. I still have a lot of doubts of Antoinette Miller. I really do. And but the problem I think for Royal Oaks in this matchup with Lathrop is going to be Karpinski up against the Bello twins. Karpinski's got no shot against the Bills. I really don't think that. No offense, because I know Karpinski's a really good player. You know what I mean? She had a really good career at Royal Oak. But I think it's going to be too much Bellows inside in that matchup over there at Royal Oak. And I think Oak Park's a young team. Also, they could give Lathrop problems, but you never know, especially with what happens over there. I think that Lathrop's going to win that district handily over at Royal Oak. The district at Warren Mott's probably interesting because you look at Hazel Park and Warren Woods Tower. Those two teams moved up from Class B to Class A. You look at Hazel Park; they've had a long year. But they do have a 6-1 emerging freshman coming up. She's a very good player. She's a good player. She's gonna be a good one for Hazel Park. But I think back to here and now, I just think that Warren Cousino, you know what I mean? They got ugly home jerseys. Their home jerseys are god awful. I'm sorry. You know what I mean? When you just have the logo of your team on there with the number on there, and then I don't like it when teams put like last names in cursive on there, the name of their team in the back of their jerseys. I just think it's not right. You know what I mean? We're not in the Nike days of 2000, in which you look at like when they had with Michigan, North Carolina. They wore names their logo in front of their jerseys. It's not. You just got to put the name of the team on there, and that's it. You know what I mean? I just think Warren Cousino's jerseys are just terrible. Because of that. I just think that whoever deciding on those jerseys is just, I think you got to be fired. But back to their team, I think Warren Cousino. But speaking of their team's very good. You know what I mean? Warren Cousino's team is actually pretty good. We cite the jersey, cite their uniform, their home uniforms. I just think personally that Warren Cousino's a better team coming out of that district. They've playing a tougher conference. Of course, the MAC Red has been a very interesting league. Of course, they have a win over Grosse Pointe South, which was huge. But they've had a questionable loss to Port Huron Northern. But any team that can beat Grosse Pointe South, a state power like that, I'll take. You know what I mean? So I got Warren Cousino moving on to the regional over, and for Hazel Park, you know what I mean? It's going to be tough. I think for the Vikings, it's going to be a tough go, and we'll see what happens over there with Hazel Park. District 42 Class B over at I think that is at Detroit. I think that's in I gotta take a look at where it's. Oh no, it's at Detroit Northwestern. It's at You look at that matchup. Of course, they have like these odd names now. You know, over at Detroit now they changed names so much. I think Ferndale's got a shot there. You know what I mean? But I think the favorite there is Warren Fitzgerald because of the experience. Because Fitzgerald's playing in a tough conference. Of course, the Max Silver this year has been a tough league this year. But I think Ferndale's got a shot. You know, Ferndale's played a lot of Class A teams. They played Troy, Athens, Southfield, and Berkeley. I think it's going to be an interesting test. But I think personally, I just think that I think personally that Ferndale, they got a shot, but I just don't think they can beat Warren Fitzgerald. I think Warren Fitzgerald's too much in that district, to be honest with you, and I think Fitzgerald's going to move on in that one. Over at Detroit Renaissance, of course, I read an article from Tom Markowski. Everybody's talking to me about Farmington Hills Mercy. Of course, that they're going to win this district. I'm not sold on it because here's why I'm not sold. Farmington Hills Mercy's had a struggling season. You know what I mean? They've had a tough year. Now, they've not like the extent of those the team they had last year. Last year was a heck of a team. But when you look at the team that they have, like you look at the situation. This year, they beat Rochester. But when I look at a team like Detroit Renaissance, I think that personally, when you look at the game there, I just think that Detroit Mumford is one of the favorites. You know what I mean? They've had a successful season. I think, everybody's going to say Mercy's favored, but a team to watch out for in that district is Southfield. Because the Blue Jays had a heck of a year, 18-2. You cannot quote the competition they played. Their two losses were against two very good teams in Dearborn Heights, Robichaud, and Lathrop. But here's the thing with Southfield. Southfield's a junior lane team. I think that they're going to have a huge, huge, huge year. I really do. And I think personally, when you look at Southfield, it would not surprise me if they shock Mercy, Farmington Hills Mercy, or Detroit Renaissance. I know Detroit Renaissance and Farmington Hills Mercy, they play today. I expect that one to be a very good matchup. It'll be a very good game. You know what I mean? Diane Jones used to coach at Detroit Renaissance, of course, winning numerous state titles there. I think Detroit Renaissance, I think they got a shot at this thing. They can win today, I think for sure, over Mercy. But Mercy can do the same thing. It's going to be an actual true road game for Farmington Hills Mercy. It's going to be a good test to see where the Marlins are at. Another district I disagree with Tom Markowski is over at West Bloomfield, over at Wall Lake Northern today. And that's where West Bloomfield's at. Lakeland's a good team. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. Lakeland's got a very good player in Amanda Locke. But I got some questions with Lakeland because especially when they lost their arch rival Milford a couple weeks ago. They lost 30-27. They're known for their defense. Of course, a lot of these teams are known for their defense. And you look at the team there that I think personally would be but you look at the team there, I think personally is that Lakeland, I'm just not sold on Lakeland at all. I think West Bloomfield can play an offensive up-tempo game, for sure. But the key, I think, to this district is Rachel Harnish of West Bloomfield. If Harnish is on her game like she was against Boopie Hills at Oakland University, a few weeks ago, I think that West Bloomfield's got a great shot at winning this thing. I think they do. I think West Bloomfield can upset Lakeland and win that district because you look at that matchup. I'm just not sold on the guard matchup. I think Charlika Stubbs, if she plays advanced, if she plays like a freshman, West Bloomfield's going to have problems. I think she's going to be more advanced in this district. I think that, personally, this is a perfect opportunity for her to show what she has, you know what I mean? Now, I know West Bloomfield next year's got 3 freshmen coming up. They're going to be very talented for Zach Hilbers. But the thing is, look into the here and now. here and now. You know what I mean? I think West Bloomfield's got a great, and of course, let's remember last year West Bloomfield lost in overtime to Lakeland, so there should be some motivation there for some of those girls who were on that team over there at West Bloomfield. So we'll see what happens over there. And then the last district of Oakland County, of course, is at the Lake Orion district. This is, in my opinion, I think the toughest district in the state of Michigan. I really do. 78 and 41. That's all I need to know. I mean, that's the combined record of all six of these teams at Lake Orion, at the Lake Orion district today. You got Rochester playing Stony Creek, which I think it's going to be an interesting game. Rochester's been playing much better, even though they lost to Oak Park 48-36 over during the weekend. And then you got that winner's going to take on Oxford. Of course, Oxford won the OAA White this year. I'm curious to see how the league meeting will go with Oxford, because even though I don't think they will do very well in the red, I think personally if they do move up, but we'll see what happens with Oxford. I think Oxford, when you look at a possible Oxford Stony Creek matchup in the semifinals, that could be an interesting matchup because here's why. Because I think Stony Creek, could play the same defense that they played against Davenport, up Clarkson. Of course, they limited Davenport to 9 points. They basically just collapsed and played a good zone defense on them. You know what I mean? I think Murphy's going to have some issues in that game, no doubt. But if you shut down Jessica Murphy, you shut down Oxford. I'm not so on Sherilyn Bandis or Sky Donaldson. You know what I mean? I know those two are seniors as well. But you look at what Oxford's got coming back next year, and I don't know if it's a good idea for them to move up to the red. I really don't. But Stony Creek and Oxford's gonna be a good matchup. When I look at that matchup, I just think Stony Creek is. I think right now the way they're playing well right now, I think they're gonna give Oxford a lot of trouble. I like Stony Creek to knock off Oxford, unfortunately, and end the Wildcat season. Now, it wouldn't surprise me if Oxford wins that game over Stony Creek. But I just think in the end of the day, I think it's going to be too much Stony Creek, because they play in a tougher division. They know how to play a defensive style type of game. And let's not forget, the game at Oxford, Maria Zadie did not play in that game. She did not play in that game. In the second game at Rochester, she played in that game. And of course, if you get Murphy in foul trouble, you're going to get Oxford in a lot of trouble. And then of course you got the big one today. One of the most intriguing games today is Clarkson Rochester Adams. They played last week. Clarkson winning that one. Of course, Clarkson Adams have played 4 games of 5 days. You look at Clarkston, you know what I mean? They rely so much on Davenport, and it was clearly exposed in that game with Harrison. You know what I mean? That they relied so heavy on Davenport to carry them and to win games. I don't know if they have. Kayla Lujbeck's trying hard to be the next Robin. Of course, you got Ashley Skaggs, a 3-point shooter. You got Taylor Mullins, who's a good point guard, and then you got Kayla Russell, who's an energy small forward. I just think personally, But you look at in that game with Adams, you know what I mean. I think Adams has a shot at winning this one, because you got Amber Jameson inside, Olivia Argros, Deja Dinkins, Ryan Owusu, and Raven Owusu. And you got Maggie Rogers coming out the bench. That should win you a game. That should win you at least a couple games, But I don't know how mentally spent that this Adams team is. And neither is Clarkston, So I think that with them having to play each other today, I think it's going to be a very interesting game right there. And that winner's got to play Lake Orion. Of course, Lake Orion, then they played Clarkson. It took one bad quarter, for the Dragons, for Adams, for Clarkson to win that game. And Adams ended up winning over Lake Orion pretty handily when those two teams met. So I think the Dragons have a good opportunity here. If they're not mentally fragile, you know what I mean? This team's a mentally fragile group right now, is what I've heard. And they got to fix it, if they want to you got to fix it if they want to move on. I think Lake Orion could pull off the upset here. And this is the here and now. Like I said, this is the here and now. It's not about the future, And maybe this could be if you're a Dragon. Okay, now when we come back, we're going to talk about some cheerleading here on OA Now. Of course, regional recaps of each matchup here on OA Now.
Hello, Lake Orion. It's Anthony Taormina, co-host of Between Taorminas. I want to let you know of a new show called History Now. In it, we're going to talk about global, national, and political events that occur in our lifetime. We're going to also have guests and also have co-hosts as well, and also plenty of surprises. Catch us on History Now here on ONTV.
Welcome back to OA Now. Sammy Taormina, blogger, the Dragon's Den blogger of Inside the OAA, and one of the hosts of Between Taorminas on ONTV. Of course, we had cheerleading coming up here on Saturday. Of course, the regionals take place. Of course, some 8 teams are now going to the Deltaplex. A lot of interesting, a lot of shockers around the area. Of course, 3 OA teams are now in the going to the Deltaplex for state finals. When you look at, I think that, of course, 2 OA teams won the regionals over at the Deltaplex. Of course, Rochester was one of them. Of course, we all know the powerhouse that they have under Coach Susan Wood over at Rochester. Of course, they ended up winning their regional. The last year, of course, this was Rochester missed out on the going to the Deltaplex. They were knocked out of the regional. Stony Creek is a team. They took 3rd place over at over at Macomb, Dakota. And, also going is Sterling Heights Stevenson and Livonia Stevenson. Those 2 teams are going as well to the Deltaplex. Troy Athens was a team that was left out. I was surprised to look at Troy Athens that they were left out because of the and I thought personally the OA would probably send 4 teams. I said before the year started, the OA would send 4 cheerleading teams there to the Deltaplex. I kind of thought Troy Athens would have went as well. I mean, I heard they did very well over at their regional. Of course, even though I expected Rochester and Stony Creek would be there because those 2 teams are very good teams there. I just think, and then you got to give Rochester a lot of credit. They worked hard. They had a mission. They got a shot at the state final. Over the Deltaplex. I mean, when you look at Rochester, of course, this has been a huge accomplishment for them to move on to the district, to the Deltaplex. Of course, they've had to win the district. You know what I mean, and then they moved on and won the regional. So that's a huge accomplishment over there at Rochester. When you look at the and then, of course, Stony Creek, of course, taking 3rd place is, it's a ridiculously tough regional. You know what I mean? You had a lot of good teams that were left out over there, but to see, it wasn't extreme to the east, more it was the west. I mean, I just think personally, when you look at who Rochester ended up having, of course, and also Stony Creek, you know what I mean? To go is a huge accomplishment, to the Deltaplex, and I think that they'll be ready to go over there in that one. Of course, speaking of that, let's go west. Of course, they had the region at Novi. A lot of good teams out in west side of the state coming over there. You got Jenison, Holland West Ottawa, Granville, you know what I mean? All those teams, Heartland, you know what I mean? All coming east, you know what I mean, to Novi, of course, dealing with, of course, Lake Orion, Oxford, Clarkston, Waterford Mott was even there. You know what I mean? In the regional, I mean, Lake Orion, Clarkson took, Clarkson took 5th, Oxford took 6th, and then, of course, when you look at, of course, you had a lot of state-ranked teams there, of course, you had, Lake Orion's one of them, Grand Blank's one of them, Granville's one of them, and then recapping the Deltaplex, going to the Deltaplex, of course, Grand Blanc going there. I think it's the first time in a long while for Grand Blanc that they're going to be they're heading out there to the Deltaplex. Granville, of course, they usually are a good team there. They usually go out. They usually have good results there. They're going. Heartland is another one that's going over there. Of course, Heartland, of course, another cheerleading power, and Lake Orion actually winning the regional for, I think, for the first time since 2008 for a second year coach Nikki Hills, who took over for Nancy Diablo. It's a good accomplishment for Coach Nikki and her Dragons, because you look at what they did. Of course, this is a team that has a lot of poise. This is a Dragon cheerleading team that's got a lot of poise. They know what they have to do to win meets and to win competitions like this. Of course, when you look at round 3, of course, that's where the most points come, because you have to have, that's when everybody's like jumping up and down. You know what I mean? When they're when you're even like you're lifting somebody up. You know what I mean? It's kind of a complicated system. You know what I mean? I'm serious to see that. I mean, like, but when you cheerleading is not an easy sport to do. It is not easy. I mean, like, you got to put in a lot of time, a lot of hours, but you got to give Lake Orion a lot of credit here because of what they did. Was not an easy thing to do when you basically look, especially with that type of regional that they were in. Especially there were a lot of good teams that were left out. Of course, Holland West Ottawa was one of them. Jenison was one of them left out. That was they usually go to the Deltaplex as well. I mean, because that's how tough this regional is. But now you look at it now from a perspective of of teams. What are the chances of all 3 OA teams doing well, maybe even winning the whole thing? I think it's a good chance. I think all 3 teams have a good chance, to win the state title. You know what I mean? They have a very good chance. You look at Stony Creek. I expect Stony Creek to be to be there. You know what I mean? I expect Rochester Lake Orion, to resume a rivalry that's been there for a long while. And I think personally it's going to be a good meet. I think it's going to be close. I really think it's going to be really close this year. And you look at the teams that they have over there, I think personally that it would not surprise me if an OA team wins the state title. I mean, they would not. I mean, like, I know Southgate Anderson's there. Of course, I don't know what happened over there. I think Southgate Anderson might have moved down a division. I'm not sure. But I'll take a look when I'm done with the pod. So, but you look at the situation there. I mean, like, with what's going on in the Deltaplex, of course, I've been to the Deltaplex. It's a nice place. It's a nice area, nice arena, but we'll see what happens. Like I said, it's a big opportunity for cheerleading to do very well. Big opportunity, I think, for the 3 OA teams still involved. I wish there were 4 teams involved, with Troy Athens, but, it is what it is over there. And you just cannot, only 4 teams advance. And, and unfortunately, Troy Athens had the lead for 2 rounds. And then, like, all of a sudden, like, Sterling Heights Houston comes out of nowhere and just, like, takes out a very good Troy. I mean, like, and Sterling Heights Houston comes out and takes out a very good Troy Athens team, and unfortunately ending your season, But good season to all, who didn't make the regional. You just got to give them credit. They worked hard. They were talented. I mean, like, we'll see what happens. Do I think Clarkson's back in cheerleading next year? Do I think Clarkson's back? You know what I mean? I mean, like, it's been years that Clarkson's not been very good. They were in the white. Do I think they make a move to red? I don't know. I really don't know. I really don't know how the cheerleading league meeting is going to go. So we'll see what happens. Let's recap, of course, wrestling over at of course, Oxford losing to Brighton. Of course, Brighton, a very good wrestling program. They were senior lane team. Oxford held their own in that one until they held their own. They had a very good season, of course. However, I just thought personally the draw that they got was not very good because you're playing a senior heavy Brighton Bulldog team. It was very, very good. course, you had Heartland as well in there, and Brighton Heartland ended up going to the state finals where Brighton ended up winning it. But I think personally, when you look at the situation that they had over there, I think Oxford got a really bad draw. Not sure based on losses, but, of course, I thought normally personally Oxford would have had a better seed because of their reputation as a program. But, you got to give credit to where credit's due to and I'm not sure who does the rankings. I'm not sure who seeds the teams in the tournament. I know you got individual tournament this weekend at the Palace. So I think it'd be an interesting like final week of the wrestling season over at the regular. I think it'd be interesting final week of the regular season. Of course, spring sports starts in 2 weeks. So you got tryouts there. I mean, there's still some snow on the ground, but by looking at the weather forecast, I mean, it could be a little interesting, especially with Tuesday's weather. Possibly a rain-snow mix, a little bit of freezing rain. But like I said, we'll see what happens. We will see what happens coming up. Okay, now, everybody, when we come back, we're going to talk about some boys basketball. Of course, interesting week. What happened? Interesting week for sure. What happened over there here on OAA Now.
We want a Habitat home.
I love working on my Habitat home.
Soy dueño de una casa de Habitat.
My neighbor is a Habitat homeowner.
Being a Habitat homeowner has changed our lives.
My mortgage payment for Habitat is less than what I paid for rent.
Habitat for Humanity of Oakland County currently has homes available with mortgage payments lower than most rent payments. If you or someone you know needs decent and affordable housing, call 248-338-1843 or visit our website at habitatoakland.org.
Welcome back to OAA Now. I'm Sammy Taormina, blogger of the Dragon's Den, blogger of Inside the OAA, and one of the hosts of Between Taorminas on O1 TV. Interesting topics we talked about. We talked about girls basketball. Of course, their districts are tonight. We talked about cheerleading, of course. Their state finals is this weekend over at the Deltaplex, of course, involving Lake Orion, Rochester, and Stony Creek. And you got and then of course you got and of course you have wrestling. Of course, the team that happened last weekend, of course, with Oxford ended up losing on Friday to top seed Brighton. Brighton ended up winning the state title. And you got individual wrestling tournament this weekend over at the Palace of Auburn Hills. Encourage you all to go out there and watch some good cheerleading / wrestling and some basketball action as well. But let's talk about the boys here, boys basketball. Of course, the red division I think was pretty much decided on Friday night with Clarkson knocking off North Farmington. You got to give of course, Clarkson's had a really good year with Andrew Myers and Foster Lawyer in their backcourt. Tame Throgmorton came back. And, this Clarkson team looks like they look like they're poised to make us run at this thing. I really do, because you look at what Clarkson's done. You got a deep bench. You got a heart and soul player in Mirror Canada. And of course you got a very solid backcourt of Andrew Myers and Foster Lawyer. It's going to take a heck of an effort for a team to beat them. It really would take a heck of an effort. I think Macomb Dakota right now would be the best team that could give Clarkson some problems. I really do, with the emergence of their transfers from Mount Clemens. But I just think when you look at Clarkson, this is a team, everybody knew about the arrival of Foster Lawyer. Of course, John Lawyer's used to be he used to coach the Detroit Pistons, and then of course he's still on the staff. So he's still coaching over there. But what he's done with Clarkson is I think he's made him a better upgrade. I personally think when I look at Foster Lawyer, I think that he may be the best. He may be probably the best guard to come out of Clarkson. And I think it's saying a lot. He's got a strong basketball IQ, very talented, a very good player. You know what I mean? So I think personally, but you don't know the strength of this team, especially the next 4 years, because everybody's gonna be focusing a lot. Do I compare Foster Lawyer to a Mackenzie Harbort? And I know they're two different players, but it's starting to look like a familiar common. Is, where lawyers taking advantage of, because Andrew Myers is a good player, Merrick Cannon is a good player, Taven Throgmorton's a good player, and also Jonah Newblatt's a good player. I mean, like, and also Coach Ewens, he's going to Michigan State, next year for football. I mean, like, you look at this team. I mean, like, I think Foster Lawyer is benefiting from the team that he has around him. You know what I mean? It's very similar situation what Mackenzie Harbord has over at Seaholm. And, just wait until teams are going to start being the main focus toward him. I'm just curious because you look at the year Harbord had, her sophomore campaign from her freshman campaign. And I think it's the same situation here when you look at what the Harbord situation was over at Seaholm compared to the situation at Clarkston. And I think right now, I think Lawyer is going to have a better, he's going to, I think he can fix this. You know what I mean? I think but there's going to be a lot of people are going to focus a lot of attention on him, once, because Clarkston's not going to have the talent that they've had around Lawyer especially when that junior class leaves. And it's going to be, I think it's going to be an interesting year, next few years over at Clarkston, you know what I mean? I think next year they're going to be very good. I'm not sure about 2 or 3 years from now. I think Lawyer's going to have to do a lot more to carry the load over there at Clarkston. But you see the difference with Lawyer and Mackenzie Harbord, you know what I mean? Like, and with Harbord this year, had some uncertainty, had some unfortunate circumstances happen. Of course, Molly Stellenberg leaving to go to Illinois, I think that hurt Seaholm, and I think and I think it's kind of affected how teams play Seaholm nowadays. I think it impacted them in the blue this year, but it put a lot more pressure on Harbord and especially Diana Holman to carry the load, and I think Foster Lawyer is going to have that impact over there at over there. I think Clarkston's going to go perfect. I really do. I think they're going to finish 20-0. But I just think in the 2 years from now, I think they're going to have some problems heading into that time frame there in the boys. In there you got a team that's really had a lot of issues this year in Olympia Hills. Of course, well documented with the Dwayne Graves resignation. They've struggled. It would not surprise me next year if they moved down to the OA White because of the what happened over there. Because the team's not very good, but their freshman and JV teams, however, are very good. And I think personally, and we don't know who the new coach will be there. Will it still be Dave Stratton? You know what I mean? Will it be Dave Stratton? Because he's got track coming up in 2 weeks. I mean, like, and also you got, and you also got the possibility of Jeff Rubin. You know what I mean? Now, I think Rubin's not a good fit over there to coach both teams again. But, it's a route that I think that RJ, the athletic director over at Bloomfield Hills, has got to look at. Southfield's been having a interesting season, of course. They're getting ready for district play. Isaiah Cannon, I think, is having a good year. Fred John, or at Southfield Lathrop, a young player. I think he's going to be a very dangerous player next year as well. I think he's going to be the difference over there. You know what I mean? Like with how his energy is over at Lathrop. I think personally that I think Lathrop's in a good position right now to build upon it. And then you look at next, and then of course you look at, let's go to the gold first, before we go gold, then blue, then white. And the gold, of course, now we're back to a three-way tie now with the with Hazel Park knocking off Berkeley, Farmington winning. It makes a big game now between Farmington and Farmington Hills Harrison. I think it's a huge game for Farmington because you look at that game right there. Farmington. I mean, like they beat Harrison early in the year. I mean, like, but Harrison's always a dangerous team at home. Harrison's won some games where they've had no business winning. I think personally, in that matchup, but also Hazel Park with the emergence of Julian Giles, of course, and also their 3 other freshmen who are very good as well. I think Hazel Park is a team that is well poised to go on the rise as well. In that division, of course, Berkeley, we all know what Jonathan Radner and what he can do. And you look at what's going on over there. I still think, Farmington has the athletes to win this division. It's all about mindset with them. So you look at the situation over there, I just think personally with Farmington, Farmington, they have the talent to win this division, but you don't know where the mindset's at. And I think it's going to be a huge problem heading into the final week of the regular season. Of course, all 3 of these teams are going to be in different districts. You know what I mean? Farmington going to be at Detroit Renaissance. It's a tough district when you have Detroit UAD Jesuit in there, who just won the Catholic League in there. You got Southfield, Detroit Renaissance. I mean, my goodness. And then you got Detroit Mumford, who's always fast, and that's not going to be an easy district right there. Hazel Park's going to be at Warren. Going to be in Warren. I still think you look at Warren Mott's going to be a good team. I think it could bring some problems, I think. But Hazel Park, I think, has got a shot at that district. I really look at that district. I think they got an outside shot. I mean, no offense, but I think Hazel Park can use some damage in their district. And then you got Berkeley, of course, Oak Park's in there. I'm sorry, Berkeley. Speaking of the and then we go to the blue, of course, West Bloomfield and Avondale. My pick in the gold, I'm gonna be honest with you, I think Hazel Park's gonna win that division. I really do. I mean, it'll be a great of accomplishment for the Vikings. I think Hazel Park will win that division. I really do. But back to the blue. Let's go to the blue now. Of course, Stony Creek, they got whooped by West Bloomfield pretty bad. The Oxford Wildcats. I cannot figure this team out. You're up by 19 on the road in Auburn Hills, and you blow it against Avondale. My goodness. This was a team that had a lot of expectations. You have Connor Ellsman, Mason Fires, Jamal Thomas, Delvin Alexander. This is supposed to be one of the best teams Oxford's had, and they can't put it together. They can't. I don't know why. Because this is a team that had a lot of expectations. It loses to Seaham twice. Seaham's a good team. I understand that. But they lost to Groves the other night. They lost to Groves. My goodness. Groves is down, but they always get up for rivalry games. They went into Seaham and beat them. And you look at West Bloomfield, they won pretty bad over Stony Creek. But back to Oxford. This was a team, when I saw them, they played Lake Orion early in the year. My goodness gracious. They just went and put a butt whooping on the Dragons. They went and put a butt whooping on them. Now, if those 2 teams were to play now, I take Lake Orion over Oxford. I just do. Even though Lake Orion's been struggling this year. They've been struggling. I still take Lake Orion over Oxford because of the fact that, they could run and gun it with them. I really do. And I'm just disappointed with the way Oxford's had this year. Now, in the district, of course, they play Rochester over at Clarkston, and then that winner is going to likely get sentenced. Play Clarkson. That ain't going to be pretty. That will not be a pretty game. I really don't think it'll be pretty. But Oxford, in my opinion, this year's been a honest disappointment, especially with the who they've returned, who they've got back. I just think that if there's one thing you can do with Oxford is the key is if they can win their final 2 games, get ready for districts, I think that they'll be in good shape. Rochester's not going to be an easy game for them. They will not. And, of course, Rochester's took Pontiac to overtime. They took Lake Orion to overtime. If they win their first game in the district, it would not surprise me if it's against Oxford. It would not surprise me at all. That's what I think personally. No offense. And it's not being like the typical Lake Orion Oxford rival. Oxford Lake Orion rival. But I'm just saying, Rochester's been getting much better. And I don't know what it is over there at Oxford, why why, you know what I mean, that they're not playing well. And, you know, and they're only a game out of last place in that division. That's rough. That's not easy. And then looking at Stony Creek, of course, they're middle of the pack team, the blue. You know, West Bloomfield and Avondale are the two top teams in that division. I just think right now that West Bloomfield is a team that can be that are balanced. I think the Lakers can knock off some people. They're in a vaunted tough district. We know with Wall Lake Western, Wall Lake Central, and Orchard Lake St. Mary's. That's tough. That's going to be very, very tough. And we'll see what happens, you know, with West Bloomfield. And then let's go to the white, of course. Oak Park, they've lost 2 straight games. They lost to Troy Athens Friday night, and they lost to Detroit Consortium on Saturday. You know, that was a shocker for me when I looked at how they lost to Detroit Consortium. It still looks like Kevon Fuller's not back. I was kind of surprised that I thought he was going to play on Friday against Troy Athens. I guess he didn't play there. We'll see what happens. I mean, like, because I know Oak Park plays 3 games this week. They play Rochester on Tuesday. They play Lake Orion on Thursday, and then they play on Friday against Pontiac. All 3 of those games are at Oak. All 3 of those games. No, the Rochester game with Oak Park's at Rochester, but the 2 with the Lake Orion and Oak and the Pontiac games are at Oak Park. So I think that game between Pontiac and Oak Park could decide the white, unless Troy Athens wins out. And it would be, I think they could win out. You know, they could win out because they host Troy. You know what I mean? Troy's a team I can't figure out because they have a big one, Pontiac, on them Tuesday over at Athens. I think it's a tough matchup for Pontiac, but if they can slow the game down, I think Pontiac's got a good enough chance, I think, to win that game. I think that they can handle the pressure of going over there to Troy Athens, you know, having to deal with their experience. Let's not forget Troy Athens is a team that has 10 seniors on their team. You know, 10 seniors. You know, when you look at, and of course you look at districts, you know, that district over at Troy Athens is going to be interesting because you got Troy, who's a good team there. Pontiac's had a heck of a year under first-year coach Ben Kelsel. You got Waterford Mott. They're like a tweener, I think, personally, a tweening team. Then you got Troy Athens, experience, you know, balanced. It would not surprise me. The early favorite there in that district is Troy Athens because of the experience that they have. Of course, Oak Park's in their home is in a district where I expect them to run long shot on their district. I think Groves probably is the best team that can give them problems. I even don't think Groves is going to give them problems. I really think Oak Park is on the way up into that district. Also, you know what I mean, when you look at Pontiac, same thing over there, you know. Of course, Rochester was a team that's really been impressing me the last 2 games. Of course, they took Pontiac to overtime at their home gym. They had the Lake Orion game all wrapped up had not been for David Gomez 3-pointer to send that to overtime. And Lake Orion ended up finding a way to win that game, you know. And you know, for Rochester, you know what I mean. This is their team that's getting better. You know, I like this this number 2 kid Hunter. I'm not sure what his last name is. I can't remember it off my tip my tongue. But you know, I like this Hunter kid. He's a very good freshman, very poised freshman. You know, when I saw him play Stony Creek, you know, I saw that they're the core, of course, it's their student section, mock him, you know what I mean, calling him a freshman, calling him a, you know, it would not surprise me if Rochester were to upset Oxford in districts, but it would be a huge surprise to everybody else because Rochester's been playing much better. You know, they've been playing improved ball for John Pleasant, and you look at the situation over there, and then you got Lake Orion, of course. You know, Lake Orion's an interesting team. You know, they beat Rochester twice. They got 3 games this week. They got to play Troy tonight. I think they got a shot at that game. I really do. I think Lake Orion's got a great shot at winning that game at Troy. I really do. And then Romeo, of course, the next night. It's another game I think Lake Orion's got a shot at. I think Lake Orion's got 2 shots where they can win both those games. And then you get Oak Park, which I don't think they have a chance. I really don't. I mean, Oak Park's going to be just too tough for them. Oak Park's a good team, you know what I mean? So, on Thursday. So, it's going to be an interesting game Now, Lake Orion will not play until Wednesday when they get the Adams-Stony Creek winner. A lot of people say it's going to be Adams. But Stony Creek beat them in the regular season. So, we'll see what happens there. We'll see what happens there. When it comes to those type of games, of course, Lake Orion's seen everybody. They know what everybody brings. So, like I said, we'll see what happens heading into the boys' season. North Farmington, that district at Boone Bay Hills. That could be an interesting one. That district at North Farmington, that'll be an interesting one. I think North Farmington, Birmingham Brother Rice is going to be a good matchup. I really do. That could be a good one there in that one over there. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, of course, Seaholm I think's got a shot too. You know what I mean? But I think everything goes through North Farmington right now. And the key part is they will not have Billy Thomas for that tournament, which is disappointing. I think it's wrong. I think Thomas should play in the postseason like everybody else. That's just my thoughts about that. All right, now, everybody, I'm going to sign off here. Enjoy the rest of your days and enjoy the week, everybody. Sammy Taormina, I'm signing out. You can ask questions on my Twitter page. I'm at Saginaw Bay. And also keep an eye on my blogs. Keep an eye on what I think personally heading into the boys district previews. So, like I said, enjoy your day, everybody. And good night. And God bless all.
OAA Now is produced at Orion Neighborhood Television, Lake Orion's community media outlet. To learn more about ONTV, visit our website at www.orionontv.org or call us at 248-393-1060.